The hum of machinery filled the air as Captain Ilara Voss stood in the dimly lit hangar bay of Earth Space Defense Initiative. The Aegis, a sleek prototype starship, loomed before her, its metallic surface glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. This was not just a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a testament to their ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. Ilara's heart raced with anticipation and anxiety as she approached the vessel, her mind racing with the weight of the mission ahead. "Captain, we're ready for the pre-flight checks," called out Lieutenant Marco Chen, his voice cutting through her thoughts. He was hunched over a console, fingers flying across the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. Marco had been with her since the early days of the project, a brilliant engineer with a knack for problem-solving. "Thanks, Marco. Let's make sure everything is in order," Ilara replied, forcing a calmness into her voice. She stepped closer to the Aegis, running her hand along its smooth hull. The ship was equipped with experimental technology, including a new propulsion system that promised to revolutionize space travel. But with innovation came risk, and Ilara knew that today's test flight could either validate their efforts or expose their failures. As the crew conducted their checks, Ilara's mind drifted to the countless hours spent in the lab, the late nights fueled by coffee and determination. She recalled the skepticism of the higher-ups, their dismissive attitudes toward Earth's capabilities. "A waste of resources," they had said. "You're chasing shadows." But Ilara had always believed in the potential of humanity, and the Aegis was her chance to prove them wrong. "Captain, we've got a problem," Marco's voice broke through her reverie. He looked up, concern etched on his face. "The power distribution system is fluctuating. We might need to recalibrate before takeoff." Ilara's stomach dropped. "How long will that take?" 15 minutes, maybe 20 if we run into issues," he replied, glancing at the other crew members who were now watching with bated breath. "Do it." "We can't afford to delay," she ordered, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "We need to show them what we're capable of." As Marco and the team dove into the recalibration, Ilara took a moment to gather her thoughts. She stepped back, allowing herself to breathe deeply. The Aegis was more than just a ship, it was a lifeline for Earth, a chance to reclaim their place in the galaxy. If they could demonstrate its capabilities, perhaps they could convince the Galactic Empire that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Captain, we're ready for the systems check," Marco called out, his voice tinged with urgency. "Let's run it," Ilara replied, her heart pounding in her chest. She moved to the command console, her fingers dancing over the controls as she initiated the sequence. The ship responded with a low hum, lights flickering to life across the dashboard. "Thrusters online. Navigation systems functional," Marco reported, his eyes scanning the readouts. "We're good to go, Captain." "Excellent. Let's get this bird in the air," Ilara said, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She took her seat in the cockpit, strapping herself in as the crew secured their positions. "Commencing launch sequence in 3, 2, 1, ignition," Ilara announced, her voice steady. The Aegis shuddered as the engines roared to life, a deep rumble resonating through the hull. The ship lifted off the ground, and Ilara felt the familiar thrill of ascent. The hangar bay fell away, replaced by the vastness of space. Stars twinkled in the distance, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. "Altitude stable," Marco reported, his voice crackling over the comms. "We're clear of the atmosphere." "Good. Let's engage the new propulsion system," Ilara instructed, her fingers poised over the controls. She activated the experimental drive, and the ship surged forward, a jolt of speed that took her breath away. "Whoa! This is incredible!" Marco exclaimed, his excitement palpable. "The power output is exceeding expectations." Ilara grinned, her heart swelling with pride. "This is just the beginning. Let's push it to the limit." As they soared through the void, Ilara felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. The Aegis was responding beautifully, gliding through the stars with grace and agility. But as they reached the edge of the solar system, a warning light flashed on the console. "Captain, we're detecting an anomaly ahead," Marco said, his tone shifting to one of concern. The Aegis glided through the void, its sleek form a testament to human ingenuity. Captain Ilara Voss sat in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the swirling colors of the nebula ahead. The ship had performed flawlessly during the test flight, and the exhilaration of their success still coursed through her veins. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. "Captain, we're detecting an anomaly ahead." Marco Chen's voice broke through her reverie, urgency lacing his words. He leaned closer to the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's a massive energy signature, much larger than anything we've encountered before." Ilara's heart sank. "Can you identify it?" "Not yet. It's fluctuating, but it's definitely artificial," Marco replied, his fingers dancing over the controls. "I'm running a scan now." "Keep me updated," she said, her mind racing. The Galactic Empire had a reputation for ruthlessness, and if they were involved, Earth's fate could hang in the balance. As the ship approached the anomaly, the energy signature intensified, illuminating the cockpit with an eerie glow. Ilara's instincts kicked in. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We don't know what we're dealing with." "Understood," Marco said, his voice steady despite the tension. The crew members exchanged worried glances, the atmosphere thick with apprehension. Suddenly, the ship jolted violently, throwing Ilara against her harness. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously. "What the hell was that?" she shouted, regaining her composure. "Impact detected. We've been hit by a disruptor beam," Marco exclaimed, his fingers flying over the controls. "Shields are holding, but they're weakening. Divert all power to the shields and prepare to engage the thrusters," Ilara commanded, her heart racing. "We need to get out of here." As Marco complied, Ilara's mind raced. The Empire had found them. They had to act quickly. "Can we get a visual on the source of the attack?" "On it," Marco replied, his eyes glued to the screen. The view shifted, revealing a massive Imperial dreadnought looming in the distance, its dark hull a stark contrast against the vibrant colors of the nebula. The ship was a behemoth, bristling with weaponry, and it was clear they were outmatched. "Admiral Thrax Vorn's flagship," Marco muttered, recognition dawning on him. "We're in serious trouble." "Not if we can outmaneuver them," Ilara said, determination hardening her resolve. "We need to make a run for it. Plot a course back to Earth, maximum speed." "Course plotted," Marco confirmed, his fingers flying over the controls. "But they're locking onto us. We won't make it without a fight." "Then we'll give them one," Ilara replied, her voice steady. "Activate the weapon systems. Prepare to fire on my mark." The crew sprang into action, adrenaline surging through their veins. Ilara felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This was it, the moment that would define their mission and their future. "Target their weapon systems," she ordered, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the dreadnought. "We need to disable their firepower before we make our escape." "Firing now," Marco shouted, his hand steady as he pulled the trigger. The Aegis shuddered as energy bolts shot from its cannons, streaking toward the massive ship. The bolts struck true, hitting the dreadnought's port side. Explosions erupted, and the ship rocked under the impact. "Direct hit. They're returning fire," Marco warned, his voice rising in pitch. Ilara gripped the controls, her knuckles white. "Evasive maneuvers. Roll to starboard." The Aegis twisted sharply, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser fire that lit up the darkness of space. The crew cheered, but Ilara knew they couldn't celebrate yet. "Keep firing. We need to create a distraction." As the Aegis danced through the void, Ilara's heart raced. The dreadnought was relentless, its weapons firing in rapid succession. The ship shuddered again, and alarms blared as the shields flickered dangerously low. "Shields at 20%, Marco shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "We can't take much more of this." "Hold on," Ilara shouted, her mind racing. "We need to outsmart them. Can we use the nebula to our advantage?" "Maybe," Marco replied, his eyes darting between the controls and the view screen. "If we can get into the denser part of the nebula, we might lose their targeting systems." The Aegis trembled as it plunged into the heart of the nebula, a swirling mass of gas and dust that obscured the stars. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the controls, her knuckles white with tension. The dreadnought's pursuit had been relentless, but now, as they entered the dense cloud, she felt a flicker of hope. The nebula could provide the cover they desperately needed. "Captain, we're losing visual on the dreadnought," Marco Chen reported, his voice a mix of relief and caution. But we need to be careful. The nebula's interference could affect our systems. Understood. Keep an eye on our sensors, Elara replied, her mind racing. We need to regroup and come up with a plan. We can't just run, we have to fight back. The crew exchanged anxious glances, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. Elara could see the fear in their eyes, but she also sensed their determination. They had come too far to back down now. Let's assess the damage, she said, her voice steady. Marco, run a full diagnostic on the ship. I want to know what we're working with. On it, Marco replied, fingers flying over the console. The hum of machinery filled the cockpit as the crew began to check their systems. Elara took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. They had survived the initial assault, but the Empire would not give up easily. Captain, shields are at 15%, Marco announced, his tone grave. Weapons are functional, but we're low on power. We can't sustain a prolonged fight. Elara nodded, her mind racing. We need to find a way to turn the tide. If we can disable their targeting systems, we might have a chance. Do you think we can get close enough to board them? One of the crew members, Ensign Lila Torres, asked, her voice trembling slightly. Boarding is risky, but it might be our best option, Elara replied, weighing the possibilities. If we can take out their command center, we could disrupt their operations long enough to escape. Captain, I've got an idea, Marco said, his eyes lighting up. If we can create a diversion, we might be able to slip past their defenses. The nebula's interference could mask our approach. Elara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you have in mind? We could use the Aegis's remaining power to create a false energy signature, Marco explained, excitement building in his voice. If we project it from a distance, we might draw their attention away from us while we sneak in. Brilliant, Elara said, a smile breaking through her tension. Let's do it. Prepare the systems for the false signature. We'll need to act quickly. As Marco and the crew worked to implement the plan, Elara felt a surge of determination. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for Earth's future. The Empire had underestimated them, and now it was time to show them the strength of humanity. All right, everyone, listen up. Elara called, her voice cutting through the noise. We're going to create a diversion. Marco will project a false energy signature to draw the dreadnought away. While they're distracted, we'll make our approach. I need everyone focused and ready to act. The crew nodded, their expressions shifting from fear to resolve. Elara could see the fire igniting in their eyes, and it fueled her own determination. They were a team, and together they could achieve the impossible. False signature is ready, Marco announced, his fingers poised over the controls. On your mark, Captain. Engage, Elara commanded, her heart pounding. The Aegis shuddered as the false signature projected into the void, a beacon of energy that pulsed brightly against the backdrop of the nebula. Now we wait, Marco said, his eyes glued to the sensors. Let's hope it works. Moments stretched into eternity as they held their breath, watching the readings. The dreadnought sensors began to react, the massive ship shifting its focus toward the false signature. Elara felt a rush of adrenaline as she realized their plan was working. Captain, they're moving away from us, Marco exclaimed, a grin breaking across his face. We have a window. Let's move. Elara shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Plot a course toward the dreadnought's flank. We'll approach from the side. The Aegis surged forward, the crew working in unison as they navigated through the nebula's dense clouds. Elara's heart raced as they drew closer to the Imperial ship, the dreadnought looming larger in the viewport. Prepare for boarding. The Aegis glided silently through the nebula, its hull blending with the swirling gases that obscured it from the Imperial dreadnought. Captain Elara Voss felt a surge of adrenaline as they approached their target. The crew was tense, but determination radiated from them. They were about to take the fight to the heart of the Galactic Empire. Stealth mode engaged, Marco Chen announced, his fingers deftly navigating the controls. We're undetectable for now, but we need to move quickly. Let's make this count, Elara replied, her voice steady. Prepare for boarding. Lila, you and the security team will lead the way. Marco, keep the ship ready for a quick escape. Understood, Captain, Lila said, her eyes gleaming with resolve. She gathered her team, a mix of engineers and security personnel, each one ready to face the unknown. Elara took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment they had trained for, the moment that could change everything. Remember, our goal is to reach the command center and disable their systems. We can't let them call for reinforcements. As the Aegis drew closer to the dreadnought, Elara's mind raced with possibilities. They had to be swift and precise. The crew had worked tirelessly to prepare for this moment, and she couldn't let them down. "Lila, you're up," Elara said, her voice firm. "Go." The security team moved with practiced efficiency, slipping out of the Aegis and into the shadows of the dreadnought's docking bay. Elara watched the feed from the ship's cameras, her heart in her throat as they navigated the dimly lit corridors. "Stay low and keep quiet," Lila instructed her team, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to find the command center and disable their communications." As they moved deeper into the ship, the oppressive atmosphere of the dreadnought weighed heavily on them. The metallic corridors echoed with distant sounds, mechanical whirs, the hum of engines, and the occasional voice of Imperial officers. "Captain, we're approaching a junction," Lila reported through the comms. "We can either go left toward the command center or right toward the armory." "Head for the command center," Elara replied, her voice steady. "We need to disrupt their operations first." "Copy that," Lila said, leading her team down the left corridor. They moved cautiously, their senses heightened, every shadow a potential threat. As they neared the command center, Elara felt a surge of anticipation. They were close. "Keep your eyes peeled for guards," she warned. "We can't afford to be caught." Suddenly, a group of Imperial soldiers rounded the corner, their blasters drawn. "Halt!" one of them shouted, raising his weapon. "Take cover!" Lila yelled, and the team dove behind a nearby bulkhead as blaster fire erupted around them. "Return fire!" Elara commanded, her heart racing. The security team responded, their weapons blazing as they fought back against the Imperial soldiers. The air crackled with energy, and the sound of blaster fire echoed through the corridor. "Captain, we're outnumbered." Marco's voice crackled through the comms. "We need to retreat." "No. We can't back down now." Elara shouted, her determination unwavering. "We have to push forward." With a fierce resolve, Lila led her team into the fray, returning fire with precision. "We can't let them call for reinforcements," she shouted, her voice fierce. The battle raged on, blaster bolts illuminating the dark corridor. Elara felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her, but she refused to falter. They had come too far to turn back now. "Push forward!" Lila yelled, rallying her team. They advanced, taking out the remaining guards with a combination of skill and teamwork. The last soldier fell, and the corridor fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of the crew. "Clear!" Lila called, her voice filled with adrenaline. "Let's move!" Elara's heart raced as they pressed on, finally reaching the command center's entrance. The door was sealed tight, but a control panel flickered beside it. "Marco, can you override the door?" she asked, urgency in her voice. "Give me a second," he replied, his fingers flying over the console. "I'm in. Just a moment." The door hissed open, revealing a room filled with Imperial officers, their expressions shifting from surprise to alarm. "Intruders!" one of them shouted, reaching for a weapon. "Get down!" Elara yelled, and the security team surged into the room, blasters raised.